this episode of Investors and Operators, I sit down with Ryan Parker, Director of Marketing for Trivest Partners, and the man behind one of the most cutting-edge marketing strategies in the private equity industry. We go deep into tactics here, everything from chat functions on their website to the blogs to email marketing. We go deep. Please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. Investors and Operators is the media arm of 51 Labs, which is a marketing firm focused on the M&A and VC communities. We do LinkedIn marketing, video marketing. We host events such as annual meetings, including webinars, tons of stuff that we do. Please feel free to reach out. Thank you. What's your story? What's the background before you got into Trivest?
Wow. Hey, so I'm not a finance guy or a private equity guy or anything like that. I have a varied background. My education is more on the real estate side, really, and but I worked in a number of startups. I worked in the sports business for a lot of my career, and the thread has been brand development for me. And so I've been the only marketer on staff in a number of places, in a number of types of companies, which has really prepared me to be kind of that resource that's sort of evergreen. Right? I find myself to be very versatile, and I can pick up things that I don't know. And so that's been very good in the role that I'm in now with Trivest. They didn't have a marketer this is their 40th year as a firm, founded in 1981. And up until a year and a half ago when I started, the firm never had a marketer before on staff, someone to really think about it. And so
how big is Trivest? What fund are you guys on? How many portfolio companies? Like how many?
Sure. So we're 50 professionals, started 40 years ago, 2.2 billion under management. Right now we're on our sixth core fund. The buyout fund is Trivest Fund 6. And we also have a growth fund, which is does non-control deals. And then we have a smaller fund that just opened up this year called the Trivest Discovery Fund, which is it's investing control deals into smaller family and founder-owned businesses that are in fragmented industries, right? So these are small. The threshold is a little bit smaller to give a whole new crop of founders and owners a private equity option they may not have had before. So we have 34 portfolio companies at the moment. And this year we've done 37 transactions, 37 investments this year, did 46 last year. So prolific, very busy. And so I think if you do the numbers on that one, that puts us in the top 10 maybe of all firms of our size in America as far as deal activity.
Well, I have a ton of respect for what you guys do on marketing. It's cutting edge, and I think it's pioneering in this new era of what I like to call semi-private equity or business development 3.0. I really, really respect what you guys have done on the website, the different, URLs that you have for the different things that you want to lead people to the chat function that's on your homepage, to the overall vibe and branding of the firm. What's the story of that? Because when I went to try this website, year plus ago, it was not what it is today.
No.
What has been the journey that you guys have been through over the past year or so since you've come on?
Wow, that's a big one, and a core part of my involvement with Trivest. When I joined the firm, I saw it as a great growth opportunity for the firm, and bringing some of the skills that I had that they didn't have in the past into the firm in a new way of thinking. And all credit to the partners of the firm being willing and open to change, and to think about some new things in different ways. They've always had some pretty good marketing concepts. There's just never been anyone there to really focus on elevating all of those things.
What do you mean? Like, what are some examples of the concepts and ideas?
Sure, they always had a good cadence of emails that would go out to maintain connection with our audience of intermediaries and the people who are sending us deals, to stay connected with that crowd, to be top of mind. But they weren't all that sophisticated. They did it, right? So they had the idea and the concept of doing it. We also had a pretty sophisticated deal rewards program where when people would send us a deal, we would reward them with something. And if they send us 2 deals, we would reward them with something a little bit bigger. And so it would go each month. I'm working on renovating that too. The branding was an opportunity for me, right? So there's a key word here that kind of threads through everything we're doing at Trivest, and that's approachability. For me, I wanted to help the firm kind of rebrand and reattach itself to this concept of approachability, especially towards founders. We exclusively focus on founder-led and family-owned businesses. And for me, it was important that that the look and feel and the experience throughout the brand tapped into that. That's my background. That's what I know how to do, is to create a cohesive branding experience for companies. And for Trivest, it was just blue sky. It was open fields. And we had a great audience.
Do you mean open fields because the partners gave you the freedom to say, you know who we generally are as a brand, go off and be awesome kind of mentality? Or
well,
what do you mean open fields?
Certainly gave when you attach yourself to something that has so much potential to be big, and there's already a great starting point, right? The firm was already successful, doing the right thing, had these great like pillars of what it stood on, right? Doing right by founders and kind of taking away all the pain points that you normally see in a transaction. And those are all mostly financial and kind of operational elements but we could use those into educating people on why it's great to do business with Trivest. And again, they were doing that in some way, 101. But really what I was able to do is come in and kind of help shape the brand and give it that cohesive look. And so that was an internal project that I was able to get through in the first 6 months of being with Trivest.
Yeah. That brings up a good point that I think that a lot of our market is seasoned and has their tools sharpened at the one-to-one skill set.
Yeah.
The CRM that has, Ryan is a tier 1 relationship, and here's everything that I need to do, including the CRM data. I know he has, 2 kids, here's the age, but they're not good at the one-to-many or the one-to-few, the one-to-many skill set. That is like equally important now in this new era of business development, in the new era of private equity.
Absolutely. And what I work very closely with our BD team. We have an internal BD team, which includes regionals as well throughout, including Canada, but also we have 3 of them around the US and then 3 of them in Miami that are based in the Miami office headquarters. And I work very closely with them on a range of initiatives, some of which work, some of which don't really work, but you just got to try some new things. And we have what I'll call the audacious goal of being recognized as the leading innovators in private equity marketing, right? We want marketing to become a deal flow engine for the firm, rather than just something that, helps people stay top of mind. I want my effort to be revenue generating, right? So where we're bringing in great deals, certainly more deals is good, but we want to be reviewing really great qualified companies that have a better chance of going all the way to close through diligence and everything else. And we're seeing the uptick in deal flow. We have actually closed a marketing-led deal, which is awesome. It's a huge goal of mine to have that happen. And that happened in the first year of me being there, which is awesome.
What do you mean? Well, what does that mean, a marketing-led deal, for the people who are
sure
with that?
So we put in some, part of what I've done is really try to institute some tracking mechanisms here, right? To where we can follow through and find out if a lead or if a company that comes into our kind of conversation, if it was part of some kind of marketing initiative. And we can define that in different ways. I'm still working on defining that and how we're in the infancy of this. I think we're making huge strides, but we're still early on in figuring out where we can go with it. We're all very excited about that, actually. So, but if we can attach a deal process or a lead contact to something that we did through marketing, then we can say, well, okay, this deal went the distance. These are all the deals that are in our pipeline that are marketing fed. That helps us determine if some of the initiatives that we're doing are actually working or not, if they're effective at driving deal flow, The goal is to obviously close those deals because that leads. What's that?
What does that sample flow look like? For example, they go to a landing page from, like, they go to your LinkedIn, that LinkedIn goes to a unique, like you have a unique URL for like your landing page from LinkedIn. I don't know what that's called, where the front half of it.
Right. We actually haven't done that. We do have an advertising campaign that's running. One of our portfolio companies is a digital marketing agency called Lamarck, and they are helping us run SEO strategy and also, click-throughs and our visual ads. So we're doing.
Yeah, I saw that. I would after, I was setting up meetings after some events, for example, and then you Google, XYZ Capital, and you see Trivest on the top. I was like, that's savage. I like it. But that's also very forward thinking. And because you wouldn't think as much, I don't think that skill set is as well known or developed in terms of those digital marketing tactics.
Right. That's part of the funnel for us. And that's a whole new crowd, right? So we have our email campaigns, we have our website, we have other things that we do to connect with people who we already kind of know. That digital marketing is really capturing people at the keyword level who are then warm leads because they're already looking for something that's relevant to Trivest, right? We're not interrupting them. We're helping them kind of guide them toward a solution that they have a problem, right? They need something to help them solve a problem. They need capital, they need to grow, they want to exit, they want to take some chips off the table. Whatever it is, we're trying to do is to meet people where their need is. And so we've tuned that to receive founders as well as people we'll call brokers, people who might know of a company, not necessarily the owner of a company. And so those are two different funnels that feed in, and then we manage that through our business development. But yeah, that's been exciting. I'll call it effective. We're learning as we go, certainly, because it's new for all of us. That's been a lot of fun to see that kind of take shape and grow. That's one of our funnels, right?
Yeah, it's interesting because it's, I was wondering, like, do you think that's only specific to the lower middle market, or like, the 2 to 10 of EBITDA or 2 to 5, because of the people who would search for that term, for example? Or are those digital marketing tactics not relevant for like a core middle market or other size and shape of firms?
It's, for me, it's too early. It's too early to tell, right? Is the founder of a sufficiently large company doing this kind of Google search? Right? It's too early for us to tell per our data, right? We are seeing some companies that are definitely qualified for a Trivest investment, which is a great conversation to have. So let's talk again in a year or so, and I can tell you I'm more educated, more educated with more data to back that one up.
What are some of the other things that were kind of the not low-hanging fruit, but some of the fundamental things over the past year that kind of needed to get done? So, for example, like, I know you have a CRM, which one do you use? But also, like, how sophisticated was it versus kind of where it is now, or was it already good before you came in there?
I would say it was we converted from Salesforce to Deal Cloud.
Yep.
That was a more recent change. I think it was good. There's so much volume, right? So maintaining the database is tough. And so making sure that and there's also financial services is very transient. There's something like 20% turnover from firm to firm throughout the year in a database like that. So we have a lot of people changing firms throughout the database. And so, making sure that it's up to date that's an ongoing improvement process, right? But I think it's been very good change to Deal Cloud.
Use tools like a Chrome extension on LinkedIn. So I hover over that person's name who liked a post, and then that ties into Deal Cloud.
Love that. Don't use it. Would definitely love to do more of that. Just from a social standpoint, I think that LinkedIn is by far our best platform. We're on all the major ones, but LinkedIn is the one. Yeah, we're on Facebook and Twitter, but I think LinkedIn is the most logical for us as a firm, even though everybody is on Facebook. And I think Twitter is more of like an extension of those, more announcements and things like that. We don't actively engage on Twitter very much.
Yeah, I think but Twitter is more like VC. It feels like a waste of time and money. Now, what do you think about Facebook? Because I saw Live Oak Bank on Facebook and Instagram. I got an ad from them. I was like, you know what? This actually feels appropriate in this channel. It means a small business owner. But I was, where's your head at on Facebook, Instagram? Should you do any advertising on there as opposed to the organic stuff like, oh, we posted it, we did a deal, which, doesn't really get much any reach, like 50 people see it. But how do you think about Facebook and Instagram from like a paid perspective, either now or down the road?
Maybe down the road, we'll get back into it. We tried a little bit, experimented with it. It wasn't as effective for us. I think what we found was the warm lead of PPC, someone typing in a keyword that's already relevant to what we do, has been far more effective than interrupting somebody who's just scrolling through a feed, right? And just happen to catch them when they might need something, right? It was a very low hit rate for us and a little pricey. So we just decided to maybe just focus on PPC, but we may come back to it. And so we'll have to we'll see how it goes with that in the future.
Do you think PPC is worth it versus spending your time and your personal time and the team's time and money on just other ways to refine the current BD team's tactics, like converting from email to, this person's a tier 2, they open this email, I haven't talked to them in X amount of days, therefore they need to get some other type of touch.
Right.
Versus like, is PPC the time, money, and effort worth that versus just spending more time on the BD efforts?
I kind of separate it because I think that PPC is largely tapping into an unknown audience to us. The world is vast, right? We have what we think is a pretty large database of people, but that's a very, very small snapshot of all the people who own businesses, who are brokers in this business. And we don't know them, right? So I feel like that the PPC is more inbound on people we don't know. Whereas people in our database who we haven't connected with, or there's, some lead has gone kind of cold, we haven't spoken to them for 6 months. We do have different ways of engaging and re-engaging with those folks through, we'll do a little Zoom, we call them Zoom ins, where we'll do like grab 15 minutes and have coffee with our BD team. We do these little things where we'll send an invite just out to people who we haven't spoken to in a little while, just to re-engage them. So I kind of separate them.
What do you think about on content for, broadly speaking? How do you think about the world and content? So for example, I think LLR does a really good job on some of their marketing. One of the things that stood out for me was, I got an email to schedule a meeting, and in their signature, it had a link to their growth playbook.
Nice.
And that's a brilliant way to get them into the funnel.
Yes.
And also to get like past content, to get more and more people coming back to that content. But like, how do you think about content broadly speaking, and even specifically down to, we do one blog post every other week or once a month?
Right. Man, I wish we had more, original content from the standpoint of those like playbooks, these evergreen documents, these kind of cornerstone assets you can use to kind of get people in. I think that's very engaging. Big part of 2021 for me as the marketing guy at Trivest is to help shepherd that process more. I'm not the voice of like experience and expertise in private equity. We have great people on staff. But
so you have to spend the time with them. Be like, all right, hey, what are the questions? Yeah. What are the top 10 concerns that a founder has? Cool. Put that into a long form blog. Then that goes into 10 pieces of micro that goes out organically through LinkedIn. Then that also goes in the email distro, et cetera.
That's exactly right. And that's part of that playbook. That particular playbook is one that I would love to be able to do. Getting the time to kind of craft those materials in a way that's kind of evergreen is the critical part for me, part of a roadmap for sure. We'll have to see how we do that. What we do try to do, one area where we are doing that is we try to segment our outreach a little bit into specific areas of our audience. So there's one that we're working on now with our independent sponsor community, which is a growing community. Been hit a little hard this year but we want to reach these folks because it's a rich community for us as a firm, and have a history of doing great deals with independent sponsors. And so we've started a new blog post, which is a monthly interview series with leaders in the space where we talk to them about, their methodology and their expertise and what they see in the market and how they go about doing whatever it is that's important to how they operate. And it's a program called Independently Sponsored, which is a blog post that comes out. And that's obviously, that goes out as an email blast. It goes on all of our social channels. And that's the first Tuesday of every month. We hit people with that. And that's a new one. We're in our 5th month. Coming up next week will be our 5th, I think it is. Mm. So that's been really cool. And a way to reach an audience it's a smaller audience within private equity, but it also is relevant throughout the industry. So for us, that's been really a fun way to connect and to energize a base of constituents within PE. That's part of our network, and we want to try to do more things like that, where we can tap into maybe just the attorneys or just the accounting firms who are sending us deals, right? We can speak more closely to these different groups of people within our network.
How do you think about doing events?
Well, that's changed obviously this year. We transitioned obviously to only virtual events. We do a CEO conference every year. In the past, let's leave 2020 out of it. In the past, it's been an investor conference every year and a CEO conference. And then we would do a year, like an annual webinar that would be more like open, just kind of like an open webinar for everyone to get an update on the firm. We're still doing those things. They're now virtual. We've changed the CEO conference into being more of these like town hall meetings. We've done more of them, which has been very good because we have procedures in place that help kind of lead a company through a path of growth once they're in the portfolio. That's been an important part of how we've kind of managed through pandemic and everything turning virtual and not being able to meet in person. And our investor conference was just the same. We've done 2 investor conferences this year. All the conferences have actually been very well received. And so transitioning from an in-person to a virtual is something we'll probably continue to do. We will meet, but we're kicking around ideas of doing maybe a year on, year off kind of thing, where years where it makes sense to meet in person, we should definitely do that. There's validity and there's serendipity that happens when you meet with people in person, right? But we want to try to keep it manageable for people too. I think people are going to have an expectation of some of these kind of carryovers from 2020 are going to continue on. How
was your annual meeting? Like, how did you structure it? Did you use Zoom? Was it some in person? Like, how long was it? What were the segments of it? For example, some of the ones that we've worked on have been, basically the cutoff mark is like 2, maybe 3 hours.
Yeah.
And, we've shot these over Zoom, and the structure was starting off with the welcome overview of the firm update. Then you go like fund 5, mm-hmm. each portfolio company. Mm-hmm. And each one might also have like a 2-minute video on the update of the firm, mm-hmm. That we shoot at. And then at the end of that fund, they will open it up for Q&A. Okay, cool. Now let's go to fund 4. Yeah. And then but the interesting thing is like this balance where we've worked on some projects that have been all like 99% pre-recorded. Mm-hmm. And then the other part being live with some like showing pre-recorded Portco videos.
Nice.
So like, how did you guys structure yours? What do you think worked? What do you think, might want to be different in the future?
Yeah, they were all a little different. It was all live. We didn't have anything pre-recorded. We didn't use anything like breakout rooms. We weren't quite that sophisticated. We actually had separate for the investor conference we had one in May and then one again at the end of the year. The CEO conferences were a little different, but the investor conference we had was a kind of a general assembly Zoom webinar for everybody. And then there were Zoom meetings that were separate to each fund because they have advisory boards which are smaller. And those were more kind of in-depth with each portfolio company. Whereas the general assembly was a little bit more cursory, a little bit higher level overview, maybe not every company, but more of like a case study kind of thing for each fund.
How long was that?
Yeah, good question. I've forgotten exactly. Probably an hour and a half was a general assembly.
Over Zoom?
Yeah. And then we did one for the CEOs that was too long. I think it was like 3 hours, and that was just, it felt too long, but it was valuable from the standpoint of we mixed it up. it was a mixture of presenters, right? So it wasn't just Trivest folks presenting. It wasn't just the partners getting up and talking about the funds that they oversee. We had some third-party vendors who are adding value to our portfolio companies in different ways, present their businesses as solutions for our portfolio to start looking at.
So like content marketing.
Well,
of them, and like, here's the operational improvement we did at this portfolio company.
Yeah, exactly. It was different types of engagements. It was one that was having to do with outsourced hiring, right? Or somebody who was working just on social media.
Yeah.
There was a social listening company. There's a few different ones that can add value in different ways. One is just operational improvement consultant that comes in and just tells you how to run things more smoothly. If it's a manufacturing company, for instance. So we had a handful of those, which was I thought very good. It did go on a little bit longer than we wanted to.
Yeah.
And we learned our lesson, and we tightened it up for the next couple. We've been in that probably hour and a half window, which I think is about the right amount of time. Because I think that an exhaustive
review, 2 hours.
Yeah.
And keeping it in one day in one session, as opposed to like splitting it out or having breakout rooms. But I had some feedback from a law firm that works with a lot of GPs, and they were saying like the breakout rooms for LPs was an interesting idea that they've seen at some annual meetings, and having that structured into the annual meeting, because that's one of the benefits. Like the LPs don't have a chance to talk to each other in person or as much. On a different note with video, how video podcasts, like what are some other creative things that you guys have either used or started to see and explore?
Sure.
Like Parker Gale, for example, I think has probably the most well-known and probably the best podcast in the lower middle market.
Parker Gale?
Yeah, Parker Gale in Chicago.
Yeah.
Plexus has theirs. They paused it for a little while, but they're restarting it.
Yep. We're launching a podcast this year. Another bit that's been brewing for quite a while. Just one of those things we want to do well. And it started out as a kind of a shorter form, kind of quick hit kind of thing. And we decided to make it more of a library of content. And so we really want to make that, again, kind of evergreen for people where, if we're talking to a founder in, 2 years from now, and some kind of scenario comes up and has to do with maybe a non-control investment, we can say, listen, we're having this great conversation. I want you to go listen to this podcast episode. It was an interview we gave, and it was all about this exact topic, right? I want people to be able to go back and use this library as a resource of information. And so coming up with that content just takes a little time to organize and to kind of herd that thing together. But it's going to be called The Hurdle. So The Hurdle is going to be our new podcast that's coming online here in 21. We're very excited about that. Gosh, what was the other part? Yeah, video. Another thing on video.
And the video, not just for public stuff, but now we're also shooting content for LP facing stuff. So on a quarterly basis, here's our quarterly letter, with the facts and figures, the stuff in Word and PowerPoint, but also here's like your quarterly video update.
Right.
It could be like a 2-minute highlight.
Yeah. So the most we've done on video so far, and again, I think video is the most powerful medium for connecting with people. And I'm a huge advocate of it. We have done some CEO like testimonials, people who have worked with Trivest, and that's on our website, which you can see. And we use that a little bit here and there. The biggest part of it, we have a separate website that's just for our portfolio companies called path-to-3x.com. So path-to-3x.com. So the path to 3x is a value creation strategy that we've honed over decades of being a private equity firm. And that's a private site. And it's a password protected thing for our portfolio companies that get in there. And in there, I'm happy to give you access so you can check it out. But in there is basically a 6-part video series that takes you through the different pillars of the path to 3x. Things like becoming in a category of 1, top grading your organization with A players, right? Improving your organic growth strategy. These are important things. How you manage M&A, how you.
Is this when they become part of the portfolio?
Yeah, and occasionally we'll give them access to that if it's part of a diligence process or if there's something just to kind of get them over the hump. But this is a growing asset for us something we manage completely internally. So that's there as a resource for our portfolio companies. They can go back to it and reference these materials. There's also like an integration of each of these six.
And there's so much stuff that you can do in creating that library of content. So for example, at one portfolio company, they went through this 3-month turnaround, and here's how they improved this system. Oh, then the mid-level managers who are at the portfolio companies can access that library of content. And then they are working together as opposed to coming up through the operating professionals and the Trivest team. I don't know the extent to which they have that kind of university concept within the portfolio, kind of within the industry.
Right. So I mentioned the CEO town halls. The first one we did was really educating our management teams, really, for the portcos, that this asset, this resource, path3x.com, existed, and we challenged each of those companies to then go and accomplish three of the 6 modules. You can pick anyone that makes sense to you, but go watch the videos. They're half an hour long each. Takes a couple hours to do these sessions, and then we guide them through kind of a procedure, a process of kind of coming out with a deliverable at the end of each of these modules. And then the second town hall was talking about the learnings from them doing these actual exercises. And we've identified a ton of growth for the companies just by going through different exercises to kind of identify cost savings and places where they can grow. And that was very, valuable at the end of the day. We do have an internal group that's our portfolio support group. So they are, every day they wake up trying to figure out how to keep our portfolio companies growing on the path to 3X.
How's that chat function been on the website? What percentage of...
It's my favorite thing that we do in marketing right now.
It's a great playbook out of like the consumer/VC skill set or marketing skill set. But what do you think, what percentage of interactions do you think are, hey, this is why we created this?
Yeah, a lot.
Really
shocked. Yeah. So first of all, it's just me, and people haven't they haven't messed with me too much on there, but yeah, it's me. I'm actually chatting with people. I keep it on all day long. Whenever I'm awake, it's on. And so I use Drift for that, which I absolutely love the product. We actually use the free version of Drift. So there's no real automation. There's no bots involved. If somebody, if I'm there, it's me chatting with people. That's been so much fun. I probably get probably 5 conversations a day with people.
Wow.
Inbound. Yeah. And people will ask you all kinds of things. They're looking for.
So in a given month, you're getting over 100 inbounds.
Yeah.
Out of those 100 inbounds, what percentage do you think are founders or?
Let's put it this way. Yeah, put it this way. At one point, pretty recently, I need to do the numbers again here at year end, but there were 330 conversations, and there were 33 deals as a result of those conversations. A 10% clip on deal flow coming in through Drift.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I think the great point here is that when you compare this versus private equity 5 years ago, you are reducing the friction to connect the founder, the seller, with the investment team, the BD team, the Trivest team, reducing the friction to see if there is a fit. And that is absolutely fascinating. And guess how much that costs? Goose egg for what you currently
$0. It's been awesome. I absolutely
love it. Look at that versus Intercom.
Didn't.
Okay. Just Drift was good.
Just went to Drift. It was perfect. And it's
use any automating solutions like X.AI. So when I email you, there's I think is it NLP that scans the email and says, Ryan is available. This is Jordan, Ryan's, virtual assistant, or
okay.
Like X.AI has that automated stuff, and it like scans the email, and then it can reply almost like, wait a second, I've just done 5 conversations with the robot, and it feels like this is a good conversation.
It's funny.
All scheduling, because when you think about like 50 people in the firm that are scheduling how many meetings per week, and if you can cut half of those using a solution like that,
everyone does it differently too. We've tried to figure out ways to make that a little more seamless. Probably a third of the firm uses Calendly in some way. either through their their email signature or something. We will sometimes tap into Calendly if we want to schedule something on a BD initiative that I manage through our email platform, which we use Campaign Monitor. And so for that, maybe
Campaign Monitor instead of Constant Contact, instead of MailChimp.
Yeah.
Why'd you choose Campaign Monitor? I've never heard of it.
So, it's fantastic. I'm really, really pleased with that one as well. And that is because the flexibility with the email builder for me, I needed to be able to clone emails, and it's just so quick to do things. And I've built now a library. We sent 220 campaigns this year. And so
most private equity firms might send 5 or 10 or
we
deal announcement.
Send 2 a week. We send a Tuesday email and a Friday email.
Your Friday email, the Jim versus Dwight, is brilliant. And it was
we do that.
Brilliant
we do a funny quote every Friday.
Well, it was brilliant because it has nothing to do with private equity. And it has everything to do with building a positive emotion and doing that consistently over time. And I was in the kitchen and I was smiling. I was like, wait a second. I'm smiling because of a Trivest video about The Office, which has nothing to do with it, which makes me remember who they are.
Yeah, that's the goal, right? It's the top of mind goal. And those are you'd be surprised how much time we spend trying to figure out how to make people laugh on Fridays. But we do. That's a group effort for sure. But we send out the funny quotes. We try to make them funny. Sometimes they aren't. That particular one, the Jim versus Dwight, was remarkably well received. We had a very high open rate. We're in the 20+% open rate on our emails, and that was 25. And then we had.
But you're probably going out to a very large base.
Yeah, it's 20,000-ish. And so
ours are we did the BD 3.0, the Legends of BD and the BD 3.0, and our open rates were 50%. But we're going out to it was 500 people and 95% plus are BDs. So it's related to them.
Yeah. We have a large variety of people. We had over 2,000 people click through to that video. So a lot of engagement too. But to your point earlier,
and it costs you nothing to do that. Or, it was literally a link to somebody else's YouTube content, The Office.
Yeah. Now, to your point, it would be good if we had some evergreen content to point them toward, if we had that kind of engagement, right? And we have that kind of open rate. If we can get people excited about maybe a document's the top 5 ways to get, screwed in a private equity deal, something a little bit more interesting.
But you can do something that's on brand for Trivest, but it's still relevant to your sellers that you're selling.
No question.
You can almost have it as the video content series. That's also a spin-off of maybe the hurdle or relevant content.
Right.
And you could turn it into almost these SNL skits of you could have the 10 mistakes and it's once a week for 10 weeks.
Right.
And it's a minute clip.
Yeah.
Of what a private equity firm says they're doing versus what they are doing 100 days after acquisition.
Yeah. No, it's great. And it's the kind of stuff, that's the kind of original content I'd love to be making. Just haven't had the bandwidth just yet. We've just had so much to do in the first year here. Now, as we some of these systems are on, I won't say they're on autopilot. We still have to do these things. But as we go, we start to find more ways to get more of the firm involved with the marketing side. It's not just me doing all of it. No. You get people excited about how they can contribute to at least curating content. Maybe it's still up to me to kind of put it together. But that's been
how's the internal temperature been in terms of the firm adopting hey guys, this is marketing. It is equally important as BD, equally important as executing transactions, selling businesses. Because I know one of the things that we have experienced with our clients, which I think is common around most of the industry, is you have a couple people, maybe even just one person in the firm at the beginning of a project. And then by month 2 or 3, then others in the firm are oh, okay, cool. This is how it's done. I feel comfortable. I don't feel as reluctant to do a post on LinkedIn or to do a video over Zoom. But how's the internal temperature been?
Very positive. I've been very pleased with, again, the, leadership's ability and desire to improve the firm even when it's maybe a little uncomfortable to do some of these big changes. I mean, changing the logo, changing the whole brand aesthetic, it's a very personal thing. Branding is always a very personal thing. And I'm very sensitive to that. And I probably made their head spin when my second week on the job, I was presenting logo ideas. Like, yeah, who's this guy, right? How does he know? But it took me a while to build their trust into what I felt like, this is going to be a good decision to make. And then we can build a whole system around this. There wasn't really those assets. That wasn't really laid out beforehand, right? And so it was an opportunity for us to really take what we had in a nod to, in all of our branding is a nod to the past as well. I mean, it still kind of has some of the hallmarks of what it used to be, but it kind of weaves in this approachability.
Like the just say no red button.
Just say no. Yeah. Just say no. It's one of those things that has been something that Trivest has done for a long time. A little hokey, sure, but it's kind of part of our ethos and kind of how the personality of the brand, which is definitely something that's there. It's different for us.
Your website, it feels warm with the teal green aesthetic plus the blue. It just feels very warm. It feels very inviting, approachable. It doesn't feel distant, scary, unknown, private. And I think you guys did a really good job of balancing the brand of private equity with the approachability of consumer.
Yeah, thanks. No, that's the goal. And it's constantly, we're trying to improve everything as we go along, right? And so what you're seeing there is the culmination of a lot of work on a lot of different parties. But it's going to continue to improve, right? It's just a version, right? At some point it's going to modify as we go along here.
What's your process for compliance? Like, let's say you have a LinkedIn post that you want to do. How does that usually work with you, compliance team, and whoever's doing the post? Or like, how do you guys think about compliance and marketing?
We have to be careful with how we approach certain things, especially when we're fundraising, which we're not. But all emails that go out, not the Friday quotes, they're a little different. But we have Tuesday quotes, right? Our Tuesday emails that go out that we call Tombstone Tuesday. Tombstone Tuesday is now we have a lot of deal activity, so we're announcing deals all the time. In the event we don't have a deal to announce that week, we do other types of content on Tuesdays. It might be the independently sponsored. Every first Tuesday of the month, one of our Tombstone Tuesdays is an independently sponsored blog post, which is that interview series that I talked about earlier. The other 3 or 4 weeks a month that we have to work with are deal announcements, or they are profiles on our existing portfolio company in some way of like gaining new customers or talking about an add-on push and kind of reintroducing or educating people on our portfolio that's existing rather than a deal announcement. And so that's more of like a news and announcements list versus the Friday quote, which is a different list. Lots of overlap, but
maybe a better question is like, how do you structure your marketing processes with the team? So for example, do you have on a Monday meeting with the BD team and marketing, we cover, here are our marketing initiatives. And then it goes through the approval team on like creative feedback as well as compliance feedback, or right. Like, what does your process generally look like for marketing? Do you have like weekly meetings and like who's involved in that meeting?
Yeah. I mean, I have a weekly meeting it's a high level. It's me and the managing partner and the chief operating officer, who the three of us kind of work together to create most of the marketing that happens in the firm. And then as we need to bring in people for different initiatives like BD or one of the deal teams, then we do that kind of separately. But the ongoing recurring process is really kind of a triumvirate there of me, our COO, and our managing partner. And that's where like things like figuring out what to put out on the Friday quote is the three of us figuring out, and we have very different senses of humor, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
And so that's been fun, but we do have to loop in compliance on our Tuesday emails to make sure that they approve of what we're saying, even though what we're saying typically has to do with press releases that are already out there, right? Yeah. It's very high level generally. Where it becomes more difficult is when if you're blessed to have an exit and you want to talk about, the success of a project, success of a returns and things like that. Got to be very careful about what you do and how you say that. and how we present some of that in one-to-one marketing. If it's a conversation with a founder, from someone on the deal team talking to the founder, or BD talking to the founder, they have presentations, they may have different materials in them. But as far as making that very publicly available, we have to be very careful about how we say things.
Yeah. This is awesome. We've covered a lot of ground. I have a feeling this is like part one.
A microcosm of the year. It's been just a ton of things to do this year. It's been very good. But yeah, no, we're off and running at Trivest. Very excited about the future.
Thanks a lot for taking the time to do this.